Welcome to the Business Boys Talkin' Business Virtual Power Lunch. Please welcome your hosts, Tyler Price and Brian Magleby.
Bam! Go. Hey, I'm Tyler Price with the Small Business Development Center.
And I'm Brian Magleby with the Idaho Innovation Center.
And we do have a we always have an awesome show, but maybe,
my
we're
a little prejudiced
so it's like, I
today.
think that she did an awesome job, but we got some great guests today coming into the show. But before we get into that, maybe some housekeeping things. We do have some classes coming up.
We do.
Right?
We do. If your business is in need of some QuickBooks training, that's going to be our next class starting at the end of April. And then directly about the same time that's going in the month of May is what's called a cornerstone. And if you really want to take your business from basic bottoms where you're at to the next level, that's a class that every core business should be attended. We talk about elevator pitch, unique selling propositions, mission statements, vision statements, and things like that. So
yeah, and last week Andex put on a great marketing summit. They again had some great people on there.
Knocked it out of the park with that.
And that's things that they're going to be doing probably 4 times a year. So be watching for the next one. I believe it's the sales marketing
it's in
summit.
May, so we'll be talking about it.
We'll be talking about that one, just kind of letting people know. But yeah, no, I think we got a great thing. We should shut up and get to the show.
That's right.
I'm more excited about that than talking to you.
Yeah, when I talk about 3 super entrepreneurs, that's what we have on today's show. And you'll see it a little bit different from each different perspective. But we're talking some people that are totally knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, totally. Yep. They are. Our first guest for today, we'll run a little quick video of his business.
Brief introduction of his business, but man.
Our first guest today was going to be Stuart Draper with Get Found. Or I said Get Found first.
His old business.
That was your old business, right?
STUART.
I know the name of your business, Stuart. But yeah, let's go ahead and run that video.
Hey there, did you hear the latest about STUART?
Hey, did you tell them?
STUART just
made the Inc. 5000 for the 3rd year running.
Hey, did you tell them?
We just did.
And we couldn't have done it
without our amazing employees.
And our amazing customers.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We couldn't have done it without you.
Well, awesome. Stuart Draper of, well, you're not from Idaho Falls, but you are from Idaho Falls now, right?
From Idaho Falls now, that's correct. Been here a long time now.
So everybody at STUART has to be 19 or under then, it looked like. But that's fun, right? Being around the youth. And, Adam is one of my neighbors that works out there with you. And I think it looks like you have a fun group when I see the STUART, like when we had the event and saw the STUART kids, it looks like pretty fun place to work. Is that fair to say?
It is a great place to work. We have a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to see how much fun they have, go to YouTube and type in STUART. We did that in preparation for the show, and the fun that they had last Christmas. Boy, to turn a total negative of what could have been a real negative into the fun your company had, producing that video alone was just total entertainment.
Oh, thanks for saying that. We do have fun, and those videos. Really, that's mostly what they're for, is just the fun of the company all getting together and being a part of something.
Yeah. So if you look at where you came from, and I remember we were at something up in Rexburg, and you started telling me a little bit about this vision of what you had. So at that point, it was still just a little, hate to say little vision, but it was just a vision, and I just thought it was brilliant. But we do want to get into what exactly it is that you do. But to be the person that has accomplish what you've accomplished. Sorry to burst your bubble. It's not just you, Stu, that got you there, right?
That's for sure,
so
man.
Your parents.
No bubble bursted. There wasn't one on that. I know that.
You had great parents. Your wife, you married way up there. You had great mentors along the way. You were a wrestler in high school, right?
Yeah.
What do you think sports, because I'm a coach of sports and I'm a big fan of kids, whether you're good at it or not.
Yeah.
But what do you think some of the sports, the wrestling taught you that ultimately led you to this type of success?
Cool. Not a question I expected.
Yeah, who cares about talking about
I've learned that about you. Like, I just got to
We'll get to that. We got plenty of time.
I think for me, sports was very instrumental in helping me become who I am today. And I coach now.
Yeah.
And watching, feeling what my coaches went through, I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea the sacrifices they were making for me. And I'm happy to make them for these kids, but I realize now more than ever just what a sacrifice it is. So thankful for good coaches that were additional parents for me that helped me learn and grow as a kid. And I think more than anything, I learned how to be coachable.
Yeah.
How to take the criticism and move on and be okay with being told, hey, you got to fix this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And so to take it from an idea to scale it to where you are today, because there are a lot of businesses that just, you know, it's a local business. They're just going to get up every day, make the grind. But that, anybody that wants to scale, because again, you told me about, hey, I'm going to do this thing, and I thought, wow, that's brilliant. But anybody that wants to scale their business, what is that process like? Because you do have to be looking at the future of, hey, we're going to be a 5,000 Inc. company, right? So, so what is that like? Because again, and I go long-winded as I ask simple questions, but again, you have people that run great little tiny businesses that aren't scalable. But if someone wants to scale, what is that process like?
Great question. It's a one step at a time. You don't build a house and start with the roof.
Yeah.
Right? You got to go foundational. And I think you mentioned at the very beginning vision, and you talked about your lessons that you guys put on with and the different courses you have for vision statement. My vision when I started StuKent was, well, if I could get 100 students at 100 schools that paid me $100, 100 times 100 times 100, it's $1 million opportunity, and I was really excited about that. And I thought, you know, these professors, they need help.
Yeah.
And if I go help them, I can make $1 million a semester. That's $2 million a year. That was the vision that I had, and that was as big as I could think of it ever becoming. Then. But now, my vision's expanded. And it's because of the people. You mentioned there's so many people in your life and things that have come before that helped me get to where I am and believe what I can believe now. I couldn't believe before that I could be the CEO of $1 billion ed tech company. Now I'm like, well, that's possible. That could someday be a reality for me.
Every entrepreneur would love to have that as an idea. So what kind of got you into this type of business? So go through kind of your education and then some other businesses that you had that kind of led to what this one is.
Oh gosh, I'll make a long story short here as best I can. A professor at BYU Idaho named Kent Lundeen had a huge impact on me, and I stayed in touch with him after school. And he came to me one day and said, hey, can you come back and teach digital marketing? And I had hired a bunch of his students as interns, and he'd come to me for advice on a few different digital marketing things. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. I'll teach. Give it a try. I thought it'd be kind of cool. And when I was teaching, I realized how much harder it is. It's so much easier said than done that we need to improve education. But I wanted to go give it a try. And so as I did that, I realized there's got to be a better way. Every entrepreneur has that moment where they're like, someone's going to do this. Someone's going to do better than what's going on right now. And so we called all these schools and asked them, how are you guys teaching digital marketing? And I hired help to do this. We did a real cool survey. And as a part of that survey, at the end, it said, hey, if we built this, would you guys use it? And so it was a survey, but it was disguised as like a future sales opportunity for me, because at the end it was like, oh yeah, if you had that, I would use it. And so then it was like, well, then we know exactly what we need to build to go
They
help.
wrote your business plan for you.
They helped me a lot that way, no doubt.
And initially, it was all about the education, and it still kind of is, but I think you mentioned that maybe you were looking at offering other products in addition, so there's this evolution that happens as well, right?
Yeah, so we started with digital marketing because that's what I had taught, and that's where I knew there was a real need. And then professors came to me and they're like, hey, when are you going to do a Google Ads simulation? When are you going to do the Facebook Ads simulation? Right now that's evolved. It's much more than just Facebook, but it actually probably when we started, Instagram was like a brand new advertising medium. Anyway, we simulate those platforms and the ability to advertise in them. And then now we've got other marketing subjects, the consumer behavior subject, market research, marketing analytics as well. And it's all because the same audience that we made happy once is coming back to us and saying, hey, what if you did this too?
Yeah.
Good. Well, tell us about your offices you have here in town. I mean, and how many employees you have, and what's your growth been over the last few years?
So, our employee base has really grown, boomed, I would say. We were at 60 in March of last year, and we're at 110 right now.
Wow.
And in order to build that team and grow that big, we've expanded now to opening an office in Rexburg that will be dedicated to sales. And we call them course specialists. They're reaching out to specific course needs at schools and asking them if we can help them out. And then our course consultants close those professors or teachers. We cover higher ed and high school.
Yeah.
So.
And your office here in Idaho Falls is, I mean, tell us about this office that you sit in and you watch. What do you watch every day?
The planes
The
go
planes.
by. Yeah.
Oh, man, it's just a great little office.
It is fun. I'm really happy to be there. It's been a great location. It used to be the Scientech building, and it sat vacant for 11 years.
Wow.
So a cool part about being an entrepreneur that gets to scale something is you get to make an impact on the economy.
Yeah.
Right? 110 people, probably over 50 of them are first-time home buyers in eastern Idaho because of the startup that is STUART. And then on top of that, like that building before STUART started and we had a new job opportunities in Idaho Falls, that thing sat vacant for 9 years.
Wow.
And Curtis Wright is who used to be there before, and previous name was Scientech.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I think that's amazing. When you were doing this was my fear, that you were going to go to a city that had a better airport, that had more to attract people to, because yeah, you're just like, if they build it, they will come, because Idaho Falls is a beautiful city, but it's a tough city to live in at the same time. Is that fair to say? And why did you say, no, we're going to stay here versus go to more of an accommodating location?
I've never been afraid of remote work, so that was something that was always a possibility. It's like, hey, if we've got the right talent and they don't want to move here, I'm okay working with them. Like for the pandemic, when that became a thing and we had to go work remote for a little while, that was no transition for my company, right? Like we were very accustomed to having some people calling in remote.
Yeah.
And so to all just go remote was really no real issue.
No problem.
And we didn't really feel the struggle of adjusting to work from home life.
Right.
So that was something that kept us going here in Idaho Falls. It's like, I want to be in Idaho Falls, but if someone else doesn't, that's okay.
Yeah.
And now we've recruited people from all over the country, and they're moving to Idaho Falls. I don't think it's as hard of a sale as we sometimes think it is.
It's that January to April where I'm just like, oh my gosh, when is it going to warm up? Right? But I still love it. I mean, I do. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. At least I tell myself that. So.
Yeah. So all of the technology needs for our business are here. And we don't have anything that, like, Idaho Falls doesn't limit us from an infrastructure perspective. From a cost to travel perspective, it's heavy that way. When you fly home and it's Friday night at 9 o'clock and you realize you missed your connection to Idaho Falls and Denver, and you're just, those days suck. And they make you rethink, like, I need to get to the Silicon Slopes and be done with it. But I'm glad to be building something somewhere else. And people ask sometimes, you're in Idaho Falls? They'll say, where are you from? And I say, Idaho Falls, and that's where our business is. Where's Idaho Falls? It's by Yellowstone. Where's that? I thought that was in Montana. Anyway, there's this like questioning of whether we can be a legitimate business because we're here, but we can be. And other great businesses have proven that well before us.
Good. Well, tell us about this, the video that we showed that you in the Inc. 5000, and you've got that award many of times. Tell us about receiving that award.
Yeah. So Inc. magazine does a review of the fastest growing businesses in the U.S. And in order to qualify, you have to have been in business 3 years, and you have to have grown your revenues from $100,000 to $1 million in the I think it's now $2 million in the third year. And if you are growing your business in the like 1,000% plus range over a period of 3 years, then you're a top 500 in the U.S. country. In the top 5.
Yes, I know what you meant.
You know what I meant there. We won't go back on that. But anyways, hopefully those at home are following along. Anyway, so that's how you get in the Inc. 500. We were number 268 our first year. And then we decided to apply again. And one thing that I found was there were some good benefits to being a part of the list. Sure, I imagine there are some fast-growing companies that don't apply to be on the list. But for us, there's a lot of benefits of being there. And I always dreamt of being there.
Yeah.
I subscribed.
Yeah.
Like I once I knew I was all in on entrepreneurship and I was going to try to grow a real big startup. I wanted to study what the other ones were doing.
Yeah.
How are they winning? What gets them in the magazine?
Yeah.
And employees want to go to work for those type of companies too. So I bet you that's been easy. Made it so it's easy to recruit people.
Yeah. The bigger you let yourself dream, the more attracted people are to being a part of your dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love what you just said there.
Wow. Wow. Well, I hope
could
everybody
drop the
will
mic.
write that down. That's what every
So
entrepreneur
can I
out there.
expound on that?
Yes,
because
please.
I'm here to help entrepreneurs
Yes.
today. If there's one thing I would say, it's that you have to let yourself think that big. Grant Cardone has a book, 10X, and I don't agree with everything in the book. Read it with a grain of salt. But one of the things that I love about his mentality in 10X is that you should think 10 times bigger than you are. And if you do that, it allows you to think about what steps it takes to get there. If you don't let yourself dream there and you keep telling yourself, oh, for me, I can only get here, then you don't think about what it takes to actually get there.
Yeah.
The great thing about working with organizations like yours is you guys can help people start to think bigger and then take this, and then you can say, okay, now that we believe that could be possible someday, what are the steps? Let's create the roadmap to get there.
Yeah, and we got a great example of that as our last guest today. That he's followed that pattern of exactly
awesome.
what you just laid out there. So we'll be kind of wrapping up the show today, talking about that exact principle there. So tell us about some of the books you've written, some of the people you've worked with in doing that in the books that you've written.
So the original idea for StuCamp wasn't to do simulations, although that's the biggest part of our business now and focus. But I wanted to update a book twice a year and keep it current. And the big publishers, they want to update once every 3 or 4 years. But for students, that's a real disappointment that they're reading something about
old.
Facebook ads in 2016.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's just changed so much.
Yeah, things might have changed by then.
So I found a good co-author in Jeff Larson. He's a PhD from Wharton. He teaches at Brigham Young University. It's a top 20 business school. And having him as my co-author is powerful. And having him as a first customer at a top 20 business school is also powerful. By the way, when you're starting your business, that first customer, you take that green money wherever you can get it, but it's really powerful if one of your first customers is a really reputable group or organization or person that can vouch for you.
Yeah.
And getting Oregon State and University of Minnesota as my number 2 and number 3 clients was so much easier knowing that a top 20 had already used it.
Yeah. And what would you say some of the key things to increase your capacity from a kid that was wrestling, and so go from high school to, you served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you came home, you found a great girl that you married well above yourself. And
Thank
all
you
those
for
things.
reminding me again and again,
No,
Tyler.
that's
I
because
need
y'all-
it. And it's
for
the
all of
truth, guys.
Yeah.
He's not lying here.
Yeah.
So.
So what are some of the key things that your capacity, because at that point you weren't ready to be the guy that you are today. And I know that's kind of a tough question to ask, but for me it was failure, which no one likes to fail, but that was one of the key things for my capacity to increase.
Yeah.
But winning also was a key
Oh
component,
yeah,
but-
I've got a deep drive and desire to win.
yeah.
When I was a freshman, you mentioned wrestling again, so
Yeah.
I'll just share that as a freshman in high school, I won 3 matches and I lost 22 times.
Oh, not the normal record.
So I was.
People brag about.
And one of the kids was severely handicapped that I beat. Okay, and I should have let him win, but I had lost a lot.
Yeah, you can.
I only share that because I went on as a junior to be a state champion.
Yeah.
And I just never gave up. I loved that with wrestling is all on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And when I was on the mat, there was no coach or teammate that I could point at and say, he got the penalty, not me.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
That's all on me.
Yeah.
And that helped me in my developing years. Other failures, oh my gosh. So there are students graduating right now who are scared.
Yeah.
COVID has happened and getting jobs is harder because there's a lot of people still without work, getting back to work. Well, I graduated in 2008
Ooh.
when the recession hit.
That's ugly.
And so 7 months out of college, I was laid off. And they just pulled 16 of us in a room and said, hey, we don't have a way to make payroll today. I know some of you haven't seen your checks, and none of us had.
Yeah.
And I swore as an entrepreneur, like I would never manage my business in such a way that I would ever have to do that. And really proud to say we never have.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
so
That's great. Well, tell us about this new initiative that you're doing with some high schools here in Idaho, and I think some other states are around us. So
yeah, Idaho Central Credit Union teamed up with us. We brought to market a personal financial literacy simulation that gives students a salary as if they're already making 60 grand in the real world.
Yeah.
And you know, we teach kids in school how to make money,
Yeah.
but then we don't teach them what to do with the money once they have it.
Yeah.
And so this simulation, I'm really passionate about helping students. In Idaho, it's not a requirement to pass a class in financial literacy to graduate. And it simply should be that
Yeah.
way.
yeah.
Yeah.
And because it's not, we're going to work on that. And Idaho Central Credit Union stepped up and said, you know, 400,000 members in Idaho work with us, and we'll benefit from these students that join that 400,000
Yeah.
knowing this stuff. And so they paid for every school in the state of Idaho to use the curriculum for 5 years.
Wow.
So
That's amazing. We had Laura Smith on here from
she's
ICCU,
great.
and absolutely, and we talked about it on that show as well. But I gotta say kudos to you for doing such a great thing for the students here in Idaho.
no, thank you for saying that.
And I meant to do this earlier, and I know we're running out of time, but I want to touch on it. I want you to discuss a little bit about some of the passion behind your nonprofit that you have, because I think that's brilliant as well.
Oh, thank you for saying that and giving me a chance to talk a little bit about that. I think every entrepreneur that, you know, dreams of the day when they have enough success that they can go give back and do more.
Yeah.
And a part of giving back while you're in it is you get to hire people and create jobs. That's awesome. And then to be able to have enough left over to go and help others is really cool. So we have charityfast.org. And it's a place where those that would like to can skip a meal or two and donate the money that they would have spent on those meals so that we can go give to students in need that, you know, they want to learn, but they're more worried about what food they're going to eat that night when they get home. And a lot of them don't have anything. And so it's something that I haven't pushed as hard yet because I'm still focusing on getting Stu Kent to that next level. But I'm really excited to push it harder. You can go check it out at charityfast.org.
Yeah.
Charityfast.org.
That's right.
Yeah,
Very cool.
Absolutely. Is there anything else, Stu, that you can tell us about your business to motivate entrepreneurs to take their business to the next level?
Oh, to motivate them. Oh, I love to motivate folks and try to help that. I think the first thing is if I can do it, you can do it. And I know there's X factor in entrepreneurs that like it's hard to teach some of the things about entrepreneurship. But I would say that hopefully you saw that I'm not perfect and I'm not very eloquent and I messed up multiple times in what I was saying on screen. And that's okay. You learn from doing, you learn from trying, and entrepreneurs just keep figuring it out and finding a way. So get started and then don't give up on yourself.
Think 10x, baby.
Think 10x.
So yeah, that's a great principle to do. At the end of every show, Stuart, we have them talk about a quote that they've done, and I have to say, yours is one of the most unique quotes that we've had given, and yet I think that if people should listen to this, because it's a valuable. So tell us about this quote that you have.
So my mom used to always say that I don't care attitude won't get you anywhere in life, mister, and I would always roll my eyes. But I would say I don't care, and I really meant it. Like I had stressed out as a little kid. I would get really anxious about I have to get good grades, I have to be perfect. And my way to cope with that was to stop caring. And then I didn't stay as nervous. I didn't worry as much. But my mom pushing me to always keep caring has blessed my entire life since then. And you got to care. Sometimes I care too much and I get fired up in meetings, pushing my team because I want them to care as much as I do. Because we're doing stuff. Our mission at STUART is help educators, help students, help the world. That's an important mission. We got to go fulfill that, and I care about it.
Wow. That's awesome.
Well, STUART is going in huge directions. I mean,
Grateful
to
they're
have
here in
someone
Idaho.
this influential here in Eastern Idaho, you're a great entrepreneur, and I hope that people, when we did all the hype up for this show, that we had some great people on today. you're living that, and congratulations on building a very successful, and we wish you the best in the future. So
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
so thanks for being here, Stuart.
Wow.
We've got the next guest we have is a good friend of mine, Brett Harward. We've not only a good friend, we've been business partners, and he's with, I think you say it, Petrus Leadership. And so we're going to watch a quick video about Petrus right now, and then we'll come back and have Brett Harward on.
At Petrus, we are committed to creating self-directed and fully committed teams. We call this unbridled leadership. We focus on leading by trust and influence rather than by control. This type of leadership is inspired by unbridled horsemanship. This style relies on understanding and communication over fear and intimidation. It rejects the controlling approach to managing a horse. Traditionally, riders tug on the bridle to move the horse in the wanted direction. When horses are handled this way, they often respond in one of two ways. They resist or they submit. When a leader micromanages, team members can't become self-directed and fully committed. Unbridled horsemanship relies on the relationship between the rider and the horse. Before any riding happens, the rider and horse take the time to build mutual trust. The result is incredible teamwork. One manager shared his backstory and experience. I used to work as a rural cop. We often had to put down cattle or horses who got out onto the roads and were hit by cars. One time in particular, there was this teenage girl who was devastated when I had to shoot her horse. I mean, she just completely fell apart. Well, during these past couple of days, I'm beginning to understand the types of feelings a person could develop for a horse. I mean, me and Trigger are really getting to understand each other. I can finally see how that kid and her horse were a team. It must have broke that kid's heart when I split up that team. And well, just like I learned how to get along with my horse, I can see I'll get along much better with my team at work if we are just that, a team. I know that I can be an unbridled leader. You can have this transformative experience. You can realize your full leadership potential.
All right, we'd like to welcome to Mr. Brett Harward. And Brett and I, how many years do we go back? Probably about 15?
A lot, yeah.
Yeah, probably about 15. Yeah, Brett and I have gone back. I actually hired Brett many years ago to come in and train, do some training in my company. And then after that, he wrote a book that we're going to talk a little bit about today. And then we became business partners, and now we're both just going. We've gone our different directions, but it's absolutely great to be back. It's kind of tough in the COVID when Brett and I greet, we don't do the handshake thing, we do the hug thing. So it's kind of tough. But Brett, when he stepped up here after Stuart had been on here, he said, "Don't make me ever follow Stuart again because he is so good." But yet, you've been on the stage and followed people like Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, other people in your speaking in the trainings that you've done. So tell us a little bit about Brett Harward.
Well, I'm getting to be an old guy now. So,
yeah,
so now
I'm
able to look back, and I've had the biggest thing that I probably can share at this point is just experience. Because rather than, which will go to my quote at the end, and so there was a time in my life where I told people that I would consult with businesses, and there was a time that I said, the reason you want to hire me is because I can take people out of the equation. I can help you make the most logical decision for your business and make the best decision without all that people mumbo jumbo. And I look back at that, and I'm mortified that I ever thought that. And I think there's a time in life when you get so caught up in your product or in the theory of of what you're doing, that the people can be interchangeable. As Stuart right before me talked and talked about how important it is to be surrounded by the right people. And I've come 180 degrees where at this point, the thing that I teach and the things that I work with big organizations on is how do you get the most out of your people? Because your products, your services, the things you do, they don't matter if you don't get your people on board. If you can't find ways to help them thrive and succeed, then the rest of it just doesn't matter. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Kind of the nutshell. So kind of tell people a little about some of the businesses that you've had and where you've come from and where you're at now.
I often refer to my life in different lives. So I have multiple lives, and I had a life as a computer programmer early on, and I spent a lot of years being very technical, and I thrived. I was very successful at that. There's a part of it I enjoyed because I had total control. I could make computers do things that most people couldn't, and then I started owning software companies, and I had my days as a business owner, and I started some business. I had some successes that I built and sold things to big companies. I had mixed into the successes. I had a whole bunch of failures where I got out over my skis, and I had a great idea, but either wasn't ready for it. I didn't have all the skills, and so I've gotten kicked in the teeth a lot. I've had successes along the way, and I kind of at this point I bring just some experience of just I see things, and I can take a nice even approach to things that will tend to get the ball in the end zone more often than I did originally. So yeah,
tell about some of the companies that you've worked with over the years. I mean, we don't have to mention specific names, but kind of what have they hired you to do to come into their organization, and then what's been the ending results?
I've got, here in Eastern Idaho, I've done some work with INL with their safety programs. I currently work with KPMG, which is a huge consulting company, a multi-billion-dollar consulting company out of New York, and I work with them in some of their leadership transitions, and they're going through some big just leadership challenges. So I'm working with them. I've worked with the big internet ISP down in Utah that's just growing at having massive growth. If you can imagine a year ago being in the space, their big investment was in remote collaboration, and they were trying to convince people or to show people how to get better at remote collaboration, and then COVID hit, and while other companies were struggling and they couldn't even answer their phones because they were getting so many phone calls and businesses saying, okay, everything just changed. Overnight, the entire way we've done things changed, and it's so important, and these guys happen to be in the space of selling Cisco WebEx and selling Microsoft Teams and trying to convince people that they wanted to get into be better at remote stuff, and all of a sudden it was just forced. And so they had, where everybody else is trying to figure out how do I downsize and adjust for the economy. In their case, they're like, how can we hire people? We're growing just at these incredible growth rates, that COVID just like put their business on steroids. And so we've been working with companies like that to help them manage that challenge, which is as hard as the challenge of not having enough business.
No, that's one of the, I mean, there's always upside to things and downside to things, but like this morning I was on 3 different Zoom calls with 3 different people, and it was back east, it was Australia, it was the UK, and here I am just in Idaho Falls, and I don't even have to leave my house if I want to, but I do want to, but at the same time, I only need to have a nice shirt on. I can have gym shorts. I do put something on underneath,
sometimes,
usually.
Right.
But then yesterday when I was out walking around, Brian's like, "You're wearing shorts." It's like, well, yeah, I was on Zoom calls all day.
Shorts and a dress shirt,
just had to go from the up. So that's one of the great things I think that came from it. What do you? I mean, and this is more speculation than maybe a definitive answer. But where do you see business going? Because I still think we want our face-to-face, but from an efficiency standpoint, that Zoom and those platforms they make a lot of sense, don't they?
They do, and we're getting better at it. So there's tons of downside. It's interesting because KPMG they have like 50,000 employees all over the world, and so they measure productivity and efficiency, like they're fanatical about it. And so I was really curious as they made big shifts in how they operate. I was working with them, and I would fly out to New York City every month for 3 days and coach all the people, and everything was sitting down in a little conference room and working with the executive team and coaching. And when COVID hit, and I came back from New York. I was in New York when everything started happening there, and I came back on the 10th of March from my last trip, and on the 11th is when everything just got shut down. And I was
in New York.
Yeah, well, that's where it got all shut down initially, and I was trying to get out of there before everything was shut down, and I thought, what are we going to do? I mean, how is this going to work? I mean, I have to come out here and we can't travel, and I'm looking back a year later and I'm thinking, what in the heck were we thinking? Why didn't we do this before? I mean, this is so much easier and more efficient. And when I would go out there and when I'm physically there and someone has a meeting come up and they're like, man, this is a really bad time for me to do my coaching session with you. And it's like, we don't really have an option. I mean, I'm here right now. We have to do it right now. And nowadays, regularly it's like, hey, we got a meeting tomorrow at 10. Any chance we can move it to 11? It's like, yeah, not a problem. I just work on my other stuff until 11, and it's so much easier for everybody, and it's more flexible. And I still, with technology, we can still watch the face and see what's going on. We've learned to apply a lot of rules, and so in most of the organizations that I work with, if we have online calls, it's like you leave your camera on all the time. You don't turn off your camera. You don't, because there's a tendency when we're not in the physical proximity that you can, people get a little bit lazy and they work on other things and they're not paying attention and it's hard to tell. And so there's things you have to do in this environment to make sure people are engaged, and you have to ask lots of questions and put people on the spot and keep people so that they're, they have to pay attention all the time because they never know when you're going to, call on people. But
Very good. Well, it's interesting. We talk usually most of our things about the pivots, and that's one of the pivots that you had to make in your business, was to do a lot of those type of meetings. So I want to do a little pivot here and talk about this book that you're the author of, The 5 Laws That Determine All of Life's Outcomes. Now this has both business and personal principles built into the same book. Tell people about this book that you have here.
I've done lots and lots of training, and so I kind of consolidated a lot of my observations about people, and I get to work with folks that are super successful and work with people that own billion-dollar companies, and I also get to work with a lot of people that are struggling and they're starting up, and the book's really about comparing and contrasting the principles and how people apply 5 principles that either make it so they struggle in life, or it makes it so that they tend to be more successful. And so the 5 principles are the law of vision, the law of frequency, the law of accountability, the law of perception, and the law of leadership, and where I spend most of my time these days is talking to people about the law of leadership and how to lead people and how to get a lot more out of people than most people do. So.
Well, and I can't tell you, I love this book. I've read it many of times. In fact, we're going to probably give away this copy of it. I've got one extra copy of it at my office, so we'll go ahead and give this book away because it's a very powerful book that you've done. So tell us about this Petrus leadership that you're doing right now and what you're doing with companies.
The premise of it is that the best employees are ones that are fully committed. So the first thing we teach businesses is how do you get your people fully committed? And you've kind of touched on it with some of your other interviews. Stuart talked about it earlier. One of the keys to being fully committed is having a crystal clear vision. It's impossible to be committed to anything other than a vision of what's the impact, what's the purpose of the company. The second is fully committed, and the second then is self-directed, which means when they see a problem, when something isn't working, because if I've learned one thing in all of the seasoning that I've gotten in my lifetime, it's that I don't know that I've ever come up with an idea went out, executed the idea, and it worked textbook exactly the way I imagined it working in my head. It never ever works like that.
Happen, yeah.
Right, and it's usually I'm not even in the right zip code when I start. So I start with something, and in retrospect, as I look back a year later, 2 years later, I can almost always say, that was a really stupid idea. What was I thinking? But that idea spins into another idea, into another idea, into another idea, and you're 10 iterations down before you actually start hitting pay dirt most of the time. And so it's, yeah, I mean, what was your question?
The leadership.
The leadership.
Yeah.
So leadership is getting people to do that without just the leader doing it. So that when you get 3 or 4 levels deep and there's a problem and it doesn't work out, that your team members are saying, so now what are we going to do? How do we change this? What are we going to do? How do we make this? How do we iterate? So the leader's iterating on the big level stuff, but you get your customer service people, so when they have a call that goes bad or doesn't work out the way they want, the customer's unhappy, that they're willing to stop and ask a question and say, what can I do better next time so that we don't get that result? I got a little bit snippety there. I got to work on that. And if people are constantly course correcting on their own without a boss saying, you can't say that to a customer. If the boss has to get involved to get people to change, organizations move really slow. And when you get 110 people like Stuart has that are all committed to the outcome, and if something's not working, they're all iterating themselves, everything gets exponential, right? My growth and my success starts to get exponential instead of just plodding along on a snail's pace.
So you go in and work with these companies and work with their teams, and then you set goals at the beginning, and then you achieve them by the end of the.
We do. We have at the core of we do something called operational rhythm, and operational rhythm is simply having the processes in place that we're constantly measuring things, we're looking at results, and there's a cadence. We call it there's a cadence of accountability, where we're setting targets, we're accountable to the targets. If we're not, a lot of people throw around the word accountable. We've got a really interesting definition of accountability, and that is simply learning from successes and learning from mistakes. And organizations that are constantly doing postmortems, and they and when something goes good or something goes bad, they're able to say, what can we do different? What can we change? And it's okay to make mistakes. You will. In business, there's going to be thousands of mistakes made. The key becomes don't make the same one twice, and have your processes in place so that it's not making mistakes isn't the objective. It's learning from the mistakes and not doing it again, and then expanding that throughout the organization. And that's what we teach. Is help businesses do that.
That's great. Brett's a great example of that, and I just want to talk a little bit about Brett. Was my business coach when I had a pretty large business, and Brett grew my company from what the size I was and doubled it within the next couple of years. And I still remember the one story that when Brett coached me to sell that business, and I informed my employees when we were actually in Cancun and on a trip, and I called Brett when I was, I think, flying into LA, and I said, I'm so sick, but we've got to announce to the staff that we're merged with this other company. And Brett, and just like Stuart, caring about the people that he worked with, Brett was at my office at 6 o'clock the next morning, drove up from Salt Lake and was there. And so I can see that. I've also done some of the other mistakes of following Brett to Alaska when he calls in the end of October and says, let's go fishing in Alaska at the end of October. Yeah, tell us about that, Brett.
Well, I'll describe the ending. After 5 days of wondering if we were going to get off this river that was, the forecast was actually a lot warmer than it turned out to be. We left and it was 40 degrees out in October in Alaska, which was really unusual, which is why we decided to do it. And the forecast was supposed to be that way. I don't think it got above about 15 degrees for the rest of the trip. And the
river, ice out of the river to get out of the river.
The river was frozen. The picture I remember, though, clearly was when we finally made it to the dock, was Brian jumping out of the boat and just kissing the ground, just laying on the ground. And there's a lot happening in between there that I won't share.
Yes, it was a great trip. So we got to say we had. I've seen Brett in the peak of success of being there, for people and when they needed it, and then also I've seen him And if you ever want to see a fisherman that can catch some fish, you ought to go fishing with Brett here. So in that Petrus video, you talk about working with horses, and I know right now you live on a ranch up in Jackson, and you have the opportunity to do some work up there with horses, and I thought that video really set well with with what you do in your own personal life too.
I do. One of the ways we teach executive teams is, we get a lot of these guys from KPMG and folks that come from all over the world actually, and with KPMG that are in senior leadership, and we get them really uncomfortable out working with horses, and we teach them about, and the great thing about horses is they give you instant feedback. So you always know exactly where you're at. You know if you're being clear or not. You know if they're struggling or frustrated or afraid, and then we help them draw connections between how they lead people and how they're leading the horse. And it's I have learned more about, so I fall into psychology. My books fall into the psychology area. I've learned more about people from my horse. And I have a horse that if I've been stuck up on the mountains before and I couldn't find my horse, and I've called my wife and said, I can't, it's 11 o'clock at night and my flashlight's out and I can't find Smokin'. And my wife will say, just come down, we'll find him in the morning. It's like, not one of the options. So I'm gonna be up here all night looking for him. I just want to let you know that I might not be home for a few hours, but or days. But I would never ever leave the mountain without Smokin', because I've learned how to I've learned about trust, and I love my horse, and I treat people differently as a result of the or it's kind of funny. I guide, so one of the things I do in September, I do some elk hunting guiding up in the Continental Divide, and every now and then I ride all these different horses up there, and I'll get on a horse, and when I first started working with horses 10 years ago, if a horse started prancing I'd be like, I'm getting off. This thing can kill me, and it doesn't want me on here, and now I can be riding a horse and it'll start doing some goofy stuff, and the people I'm with will say, dude, aren't you nervous? Are you afraid? And it's like, no, we're having a conversation is all. The horse is doing its job, and it's letting me know it's uncomfortable, and I'm letting it know, I hear you, and we're still gonna go do this. We're gonna still go through this stream, and we have a conversation, and it's real simple, and everybody else, it feels like it's a meltdown, and to me, it's like, nah, we got this. We'll get there, and it's been, and a lot of times when I'm having conversations with my wife now, even though it can feel really intense, it's like, we're just having a conversation.
Yeah.
And we're both being really clear about where we're at, and it's cool.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're wrapping up, right?
Just a couple things to just wrap things up, Brett. How can people get a hold of you and to talk about some of the leadership stuff that you do?
My email address is brett@petrus.net. So if you saw the videos, or you can call Petrus and talk. We're really small. There's just a few of us there, and you can call me. I'm easy to find on Facebook. So Brett Harward. If you friend me and ask me questions, I love to. At this point, a lot of my life is about legacy. So what's really important to me at this point in my life is helping other people build things and leaving something behind that when I'm gone, the world's better because I was here. So that's kind of my deal at this point.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I've had the opportunity of working with Brett over the period of probably at least the last 15 years, and he's been a great mentor to me, a great partner. And absolutely, and I recommend his book. That if anyone wants to get that book, can they still get it on Amazon?
I think so. I haven't looked for a long time.
Okay. If not, come see me. I've got one extra copy, but we'll try to maybe give that away. Tell us about this quote that you have that we ask every guest to give to us.
Well, I just love this quote. So the quote is, in theory, there's no difference in theory, there's no difference between practice and theory, but in practice there is. And I spent the first half of my life in the theory of things and just being frustrated because I would do the things in my head and I'd do them on paper, and the theory of that just never seemed like translated, and it seemed frustrating. And so I have a son who is very, very successful. He's on the Inc. 500 list as well. And when I talk to him, his key to success his key to success is, I'm doing a little project just for fun right now with first aid kits. And I called him and said, all right, I've got 3 ideas to market this, and tell me, I want to run them by you and see which one you think will do the best. And he said, I don't need to hear him. It doesn't matter what you think, doesn't matter what I think. That's just all theory. He said, do all 3. You're probably going to do 100 things to figure out which way works best. And if even starting down the path of trying to think that one's going to work or one's better, that's your problem. Yeah. That will be your problem. So he said, just lose your investment in any of them, try them all, figure out, there will be instant results nowadays that can tell you what's working and what's not working, and go based on results and on practice rather than on theory, and that's how you'll succeed. And it's like, okay, that's good advice. My son gives me, he's started coaching me.
And he's had days where he does $1 million in sales. So Jason's an absolutely phenomenal businessman. So so great. Well, thank you for sharing, and I encourage each of it to reach out to Brett. I've seen him. He's done it with my businesses, and he's done it with many businesses, and taking the businesses from point A to point Z. And absolutely a phenomenal genius when it comes to working with business. So thanks for making the trip down here from Jackson to be with us. So
thanks for having me. So
just go ahead and we're going to invite our next guest is actually put a lot of the principles that have been talked about with our first 2 guests, and is in the process of doing a lot of that himself. And Jeff is the owner of Healthy Home Environmental. So welcome to the Talkin-Business with Brian and Tyler.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate being here.
And the new hairdo is looking really good, too. I like it.
We may need to turn some of these lights down. We got a little glare going off, but he went to his new haircut yesterday.
I decided to shave. I lost a bet and had to shave my head during the cold, and it's pretty brutal, right? I mean,
I'm not in love with it yet, but I'm told
by
by everybody else that decided to do this that they really enjoy it and that it will grow on me. So I guess time will tell.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
So I saw him yesterday, and he had his hat on and said, I'm not sure this hat's coming off, this winter cap.
No,
so
looks good.
So very good. Well, tell us about the business that you have, where you've been, where you're at, and then where your plans on going are, Jeff.
So I started a business called Healthy Home Environmental, and I tried to take an approach that was a little bit different in the restoration industry than what most people are typically used to seeing. So we really try to educate our clients, and it really makes a huge difference on their attitude towards us as a business and towards us as an industry. It's been fantastic. The response that we get from our clients is just phenomenal, and they appreciate us when we're done. You have a lot of contractors that will go out to somebody's home, and then when they're done, all they can do is can't wait to get on Google and give them a horrible review. And if you look at our reviews, you can even see that that's just not the experience that they've had, and it's been really positive, and I'm real thankful for that.
Yeah. Jeff and I met each other about 5 years ago, and the first meeting that we had, tell us a little bit about that meeting. What your vision of it was that day?
So I shared with Brian something probably a little bit earlier than I should have. I told him that I wanted to franchise my business, and he told me I wasn't ready. He told me that I had a lot more growing to do before I was able to do that. And then the following week, I told him that I was going to do it anyway. And that's one of the great things about Brian as a coach is he decided to give me all the support that I needed. And he says, well, he goes, you know how I feel. If there's anything I can do, let me know, and I'll help. And so I did. I started the process a little bit too soon, but it's been a great thing, and now we are absolutely ready to franchise, and because we've got the support of Brian and all the attorneys and everybody else that wants to collect money from us as we go through this process.
So he had the cart before the horse, as we talk about in business a little bit, but it all is good. 5 years later, tell us where you were at a couple weeks ago.
So a couple weeks ago, I went over to Washington, D.C., and I was able to attend the first face-to-face, in-person franchise show that they were able to have since last year. We've made a phenomenal impression. We've got lots of leads of people that are interested in opening up a business that's going to be able to not only help them build a good, strong business, but something that's going to be able to that they're going to be able to leave to their kids and so forth. So the response has just been great, and we're real excited to move forward.
Yeah.
Great. So
What are there barriers to entry into this thing? Are there licenses, or what exactly, when you say, hey, we're going to franchise this, what would someone that buys that, what do they get from you?
So that's a great question. It's kind of crazy. Some states require some pretty significant certifications. Other states do not. So it really depends on which state you're in, and it depends on which services you're going to provide. So for example, in Idaho, you're not required to be certified in order to do radon mitigation and radon testing. We decided to go ahead and follow through with that step anyway. And then other states, for example, you go to a lot of the states back east, Virginia, Illinois, and they require some pretty significant training before you can even become certified to do that. So like I said, it depends on which state you're in and what services you're going to be providing. Now, water mitigation is one that doesn't require much certification across most of the country. However, we are certified as well, which is great because then we can go to any state where we may possibly have a franchisee and we can actually do some training with them.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I mean, how do you wake up one day and say, hey, I want a franchise? Like, what was the thought process there? Because Stuart talked about dreaming big, not just being the guy that's got a good little business here. You got to dream big. So what was that thought process that you felt you had a great product that other people could have? I mean, why franchise?
Because of the response that we got from our clients. Because we really focus on education and we focus on integrity and we focus on really helping our clients out, nobody else does that. And I was like, wow, I've got something that nobody else has. And I thought it would be fantastic to be able to share that with other entrepreneurs and build a fantastic new brand throughout the country.
Very cool.
Very good. Well, I've, one of the first advice I said is make your business successful here first, and then take it to where and make it a duplicatable model. And that's what you've spent the last couple of years doing. In order to make it so that you could get to the franchise point, you had to make it a duplicatable model. So talk about what you've done to get that.
Well, one of the best pieces of advice I can give anybody that's trying to do that same thing is get a good coach. Having a good coach, having good mentors, having somebody that you're accountable to is huge. And in fact, it's been instrumental to our success. And so I meet with Brian every week, and he holds me accountable for what I told him I would do the previous week. And even though I'm the owner and I really don't have anybody else that I'm accountable to, except for maybe my wife.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
you are.
definitely
Yeah.
my wife.
Yeah.
I'll follow that rule.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's been great to have somebody that can say, hey, Jeff, you said you were going to do this and you didn't get it done. Why not? How come you didn't get it done? When are you going to get it completed? So that's really been fantastic. In fact, it's one of the things that I require my franchisees to do is to have a coach. In fact, I actually encourage them to reach out to their local SBA or SBDC to inquire about coaching through them.
Very good. Very good. Well, this, we kind of every guest we have on here, we usually talk about COVID and how it's affected their business. But, in the line of business that you're in, tell us how the things pivoted about a year ago.
Well, we're pretty fortunate in the aspect that our employees are already trained to clean up hazardous contaminations, for example, C. diff or MRSA, rhinovirus, and so we already had the training, we already had the equipment, we already had the proper insurances and things that we needed. So we just kind of stepped right in, and we've been able to do some really neat things. In fact, I'm going to put a shout out here to Carrie McCarty from Eagle Rock Dance. Yeah. We go into her facility every week, and we disinfect her facility, and she has not had a single case of spread from within her facilities. And
that's a dance company where they're tight and close proximity and everything. So that speaks volumes to what you're up to.
Yeah. Good. Well, we appreciate it. I want you to take we're almost done here, Jeff. But tell us about this and what your favorite quote is and why you live that.
So I know anybody that's ever taken any sort of business course has heard this: work on your business, not in your business. And believe it or not, it's a really profound statement, and you don't really appreciate it until you actually start working on your business. And it's great that I'm an industrial hygienist and I know how to do all these things. However, that doesn't make a business grow. What makes a business grow is somebody actually out there working on your business, working with the marketing, working with new clients, and developing procedures and protocols in order to be able to increase your revenue. And working in your business, you're not doing those things, so you're just sitting stagnant.
Yeah, good. Well, there's some comments in there, some people that have worked with you. So we appreciate you being here today, Jeff, and talking a little bit about you, and we wish you the best of luck as you work on the franchising and getting your franchise product model going. So Jeff, and just quickly tell us about where you're located at.
So we're actually housed in the Idaho Innovation Center, and they have several bays, and we occupy one of those at the moment, which has been fantastic. Anybody that's getting ready to start a business in Idaho Falls area, I highly recommend that you go and visit with Tracy at the front desk, and then set up an appointment to see Brian, because they can really get you started on the right foot.
Take your business to the next level is what we like to focus on. So we got a book here. If someone wants to put in the chat, if they can remember any of the 5 laws, if you can get a couple of the 5 laws that Brett talked about, we're going to send you this book. So put it in the chat.
Vision, got it. No, I'm just kidding. I already own the book, just so you know, Brett.
Yes.
So thank you.
I would have grabbed it, but I have one on my office desk
so
as well.
I've given a few of them away. So, but if you can do that, put some of the 5 laws that if you remember on there, and we'll get that book to you. Hey, let's just kind of wrap things up and talk about next week.
Next week I'll be in Florida.
Wow!
So I don't know what's
Leaving
going on
me
next week.
again.
I don't care. Me and my wife are headed there, and so enjoy putting me in a Speedo or whatever you're going to do.
Yep, we've got. So. We will probably have Tyler in the Speedo, but hey, we're going to make some transitions with this. We're actually doing a little pivoting with our business model, and we're going to implement it next week. So we've got some really exciting things that we're going to be bringing about next week. We've got a guest host, Mr. Patrick Toussaint will be here to interview our guests, and it's absolutely going to be great. We're making a few pivots. Stay tuned to see what our pivots in our business are, and they'll be implemented next week. So we apologize going a little bit over, but peace everybody, and have fun in Florida.
I will.
Mr. Speedo.
I will.